Hello, it's Chris Jones with another episode of LifeWriting.com Conversations. Joining me is Brandon Ferris, the owner of Quintessential Consulting, LLC, and Killer Bee Comics, to share some of his journey of being a business owner, as well as a wealth of others, in light of National Black Business Month. Hey, B, how's it going?
My friend is going very well. Very good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Just to let everyone know, we go back a handful of years, right?
A
You were
handful, enough to count on two hands.
there you go. In and around the Air Force, you were active duty. I was a civilian at that point, but we both worked in government contracting. With all of those things that are required for a person who works in that contracting space, and as now being a business owner and such. And congrats again for branching out the way you have done. And I'm going to touch on a few things in a minute. But what I want to know right now is say two words that would describe who Brandon Ferris is.
Two words, two words. And I asked my wife this last night, and she said something smart first. But but I would say that gregarious and steadfast. And I know that those are two, different branches of the spectrum, but gregarious, you know me, you know my personality. I think I've been the same for the handful of years that we've known each other. I'm always about people and engaging with folks as best I can. I couldn't back when we were in the office, many moons ago, for people that, we've been out of the office for years, but I
Exactly.
would have to typically, when I get there in the morning, go around, say good morning to everybody, see how they doing before I get my day started. That would be the way that it felt right for me. But I've always been, try to engage with folks, and kind of that's how my relationship building in business and kind of in my personal life works. I like to build a relationship before we kind of get started into things. And then steadfast, really, I've always tried to be a man of my word, try to be reliable, dependable, because, outside of the physical things, the handful of things that you do have control over is, whether or not you do what you say that you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and if somebody can trust you with the task to complete it. So I've always wanted to make sure that if someone asked me to do something, I did it to the best of my abilities, or if I said to someone I was going to do something, that I did it, just because I wanted to always be a man of my word and be able to be relied upon and be trusted.
Absolutely. Yeah. And right. Knowing what I do know about you, those two words, oh yeah, I they are very fitting, needless to say. So, business owner two times over, as I just touched on. I needed to know, like, from the beginning, like, what started, how did that entrepreneurial spirit evolve? Where did it come from?
Yeah. Yeah, and much as we always say, government contracting kind of prepares you for life on the outside, right? It prepares you to kind of observe businesses, pay attention to the trends, the commercial market, to know the value of goods and services and how those things. So after a while, those things start getting in your head as regular. It goes into your shopping. It goes into your, you're negotiating with your family.
Exactly.
It becomes a real part of your life. And
Yep.
so, throughout my career, in the Air Force, and then in contracting, and then working as a government contractor for a couple years, and then going to work for a woman-owned small business doing business development and program management, I kind of started seeing all these different aspects of business, and this is this, and this is that, and this is how they work, and this is how you keep the books and do invoicing, and it's like, okay, I've always known and been able to do those things. And you always hear people saying, "Oh, you should start your own business. You're good at this. You should start your own business." And I was, no, no, I'm not trying to do that right now. I got too much going on. I got a wife. I got kids. I got a job. It's too much. But the pandemic, I call it pandemic perspective, because
Mm,
really it kind of took away all of the commuting, all the way of all of the extra noise, having to go places and do things, and it really puts you in a room like we are now, in rooms by ourselves.
right.
And so when you're alone with your thoughts, you start thinking things that you haven't thought before. So I
Mhm.
came across the thought. I said, my birthday is coming up, and it's 39 for me, and I got one more year till I'm 40, which is a big milestone. And that time between 35 and 40, it hit different.
Yeah.
You just outside of it yourself, and so it hits different at 35 to 40 time. You're like, okay, I start. Recovery takes a little bit longer from those workouts. Your mind starts to think a little bit differently. You're thinking in terms of legacy and impact, and where the mark that I want to make on my children, the things that I want to leave behind in this world when I'm no longer a physical part of it. And so I said, I want some things that are mine. And I want them to be things that I'm passionate about because businesses can't be successful without passion. I want them to be things that I'm passionate about and things that, I will enjoy doing.
Right.
So I knew the one that would be the easier of the two. Starting a business is not easy, first of all. The
Woo.
easier of the two would be to apply the trade that I've been practicing for the past 19, 20 years, which
Absolutely.
is in the government space, government contracting and some consulting, and showing folks how to get these government contracts or to navigate the government craziness.
Yes.
That's the nicest word I can
Yeah,
say.
that is the nicest word.
To be able to navigate. So that would be easy. But my passion is my comic book collecting, and it had always been something I enjoyed doing, and I was getting to a critical mass with my comics, and I was like, well, maybe I should try selling them and things like that. And I was able to sell some, and then really a lot of my seed capital for both companies came from me selling a chunk of my comic books. um, and I said, well, I don't do stuff halfway. So I said, well, I can do this consulting thing, but I can also sell comic books too, because again, the entrepreneurial spirit is there, selling things, knowing the market, dealing with people. I can do this too,
Mhm.
and interact with people in my passion project, and make a little bit of money on the side, maybe. And so I said, well, let's do consulting and comic books. And most people were like, "Oh, that's a lot, man. You're doing two businesses." Like, and I was like, you know what? If they fail, they fail. But I'm gonna try it because I'm equally split down the middle. You've been in my office when we were contracting. You see as
Brandon,
much contractor stuff,
Brandon.
yes, sir.
So sometimes you have to bet on yourself, right?
Exactly, and that's the hardest bet to make. And you don't know this part of my story, maybe because you might not have been around the squadron, but
Okay.
I didn't retire from the military. I was at my 15-year mark, and I was a master sergeant. I just pinned on master sergeant.
Uh-huh.
And the Air Force was in a different space than it is right now, where they were doing special duty assignments.
Okay.
And I had 15 years in. I've been doing contracting for about 8 or 9 years, and I said, I'm on the downslope of my thing here. The next job is my last job. So I was really particular about what I wanted to do. And I wanted to teach contracting or, move to another unit, a contracting assignment, because I knew that this was my thing, the thing that I was best at professionally, was contracting, is contracting. So, the Air Force is a big institution with 250,000 people. They can't change their direction because of me. And I knew that. And I said,
Mm.
I can't see myself doing something that I'm not passionate about and being a military training instructor or a first sergeant or something like that. I didn't want to do that. And
Okay.
I wouldn't be doing a service to them, to my family, or anything like that. So I
Mm.
said, then this is it for me. And I left and stayed at my same desk as a contractor for a few years. And, that was the biggest gamble because 15 years of a military career gave you a guaranteed check on the first and the 15th.
Right.
Per diem and BAH and,
Yeah.
all that stuff was guaranteed. And so now I had to go to get paid every 2 weeks. And that was based off of hours and working and things like that. So that was a big gamble. And
Oh,
so when I came to that decision, I sat on my couch at home and cried
yeah.
because I was like, this is a big deal. I know I can't do this, but can I do this?
Right.
And that was a big undertaking for me, and it turned out all right. Now, I
Yeah.
haven't been
Brandon.
hungry.
Now let me tell you. Now that's that's what we
Yeah.
truly refer to as stepping out on faith when it
Yes,
comes
sir.
to that type of life changing, potential life changing decision or decisions.
Yep.
Because, and then too, especially as it relates to, the other people that it can potentially affect or impact, right?
Yep.
So anyway, we can go on and on about that one because that
Yeah.
now you're striking some chords with me. And just to quickly interject this point, more and more people. Well, years ago we used to say more and more people should take that chance, take that leap
Yeah.
of faith, right? During the pandemic, you call it that. What did you refer to it as?
Pandemic
Pandemic
perspective.
perspective.
Hmm.
More and more people have gravitated and held on to that concept and jumped, right?
Yep.
They have their parachute, they're trusting, their own expertise, their resources, they planned
Yep.
accordingly, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
another
That's right.
conversation.
That's a
But
whole nother conversation.
they've planned accordingly. They betted on their own, God given talents and abilities, and they go forth. So, yeah. Again, thanks for sharing that. So I'm curious about this, Brandon. With be it on your consulting side, the Killer Bee Comics,
Hmm.
um, yeah, economic development type of experience or what have you. What has been the most gratifying project or endeavor thus far?
Right. For me, it was my first consulting contract. So a company came to me. They kind of found me through LinkedIn, or we connected through LinkedIn somehow. And they said, "Hey, we're going down this government venture, and we need some help. We need somebody like you to help guide us through this." And I said, "Okay, sure. What's the venture?" And it turned out that it was going after pursuing SBIRs, Small Business Innovation and Research grants, which is something that we talk about a lot. But they're not doing that at the squadron, Chris.
Right,
They're not doing
right.
SBIRs at the squadron, and so it was something that I had never dove into or had the practical experience, but I knew the concept, I knew how it worked, and I know how to read government instructions, which is
Right.
again, it's a skill set into and of itself.
Yes.
So I said, okay, this is my perspective on what you're doing. This is how I can help. And they said, okay, here you go. You got a 24-hour contract, for 24 working hours, and let's see what it turns out to be.
Oh
And
wow.
it turned out good. I took their materials. I did some research. I transformed what they gave me into something that is appealing to the government,
Okay.
and it turned out all right. We're kind of waiting to hear back and see, if they got through this first phase. But that was a big gamble. My first project. This is the project that I'm building my reputation on as a small business owner, saying that, hey, I can do this consulting thing in a space that I'm, abundantly familiar with for somebody who doesn't know me and is paying me money because their company's success depends on my interpretation of this government thing. So,
Mm,
for me, being able to complete that, being able to continue a relationship with them, I still speak with them regularly,
okay.
making sure that see what they need, but really doing that was my biggest, like, okay, I might be all right doing this part of my, professional career now.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. Now, yeah, the SIBRs. Whoo, boy.
Yeah.
Uh, I know some folks are like, you mentioned what the acronym stands for: Small Business Innovative Research, and
Hmm.
you're right. Certain facets of contracting, a young specialist or contracting officer will never,
Yeah.
have to deal with
Never.
that type of stuff. But
Right.
like you said, you already have the training, the verbiage, the regulations, the supplements and all of the other guidance that we have to adhere to in government contracting. So again, you trust it, as I tell my daughter as it relates to soccer, trust your training,
Yep.
right? You
That's right.
trust your training, you had the background, you take it, expand on it, run with it, and see what's going to become of it. So, well, hey,
Hmm.
look, fingers crossed, prayers up for you guys. So hopefully,
Yes.
that'll come to fruition as you guys would like it to. I would put
Absolutely.
it that way. So let's go back to specifically to just the business, the day to day, or what have you.
Hmm.
What would you say your experience thus far, of course? What would you say would be the most challenging aspect of um, running your business?
Excuse me. I would say that, really it becomes, the management of time.
Mm,
Time is that one commodity that you don't get any more of. It's finite. It really is. You don't know how much that you have left, and you really only have 24 hours in a day. So, really being able to manage the time for, they call it being a parallelpreneur. So you have a day job, that's your parachute, so to speak, and you have to be good at that day job so they can continue to pay you, and you can support your family. And I have children and a wife,
hmm.
and failure or not bringing in income is not an option because I have 5 people that depend on me.
Exactly.
So managing the time is probably the most challenging thing. And then I have two diametrically opposed businesses in consulting and in comic books. So there's no real way to cross those streams and kind of, because selling comic books is essentially retail.
Yes.
I'm updating pricing. I'm kind of keeping up with the market to see what's what so I can sell these things. It's really transactional.
Okay.
Whereas though consulting is relational,
Uh-huh.
and product based, and really result driven. So I have to balance those two and being able to kind of switch modes. It's always been it can be a challenge, but for me I found it easier. I'm a Gemini, so I got 2 people in here already. So carrying the switch between those different business modes has been a challenge, but really making sure I'm putting enough time into both so that they are equally successful. People will tell you that you can't focus on 2 things at one time, but it's hard so far.
Look,
No complaints from me.
look, we are in the same boat. I get it. And look, let's go back to contracting right quick.
Oh yeah. Oh
Contracting, if you can't multitask as a contracting specialist, and especially
yeah.
you become a warranted contracting officer, you're not going to last too long
Oh no.
because you know.
Yeah. My first end of fiscal year, like you, I actually started contracting in September.
Okay.
But I didn't, that wasn't a real end of fiscal year. So I actually had a whole year to kind of build up to my first end of fiscal year. And we worked every day that September. And when I say every day, I mean every day,
Yeah.
Saturday and
Yes.
Sunday. This was
Yes.
before soft closeouts. This was before this one. No, this was,
That was
the
the
security
back
for,
in the day
yeah,
contracting.
yeah, giving you a
Yes.
$500,000 on the 28th, talking about you got to spend this. What? What? So, really, I was managing probably at the height of that, 25 or 26 different purchases actively that
Yes.
needed to be completed, within 30 days or less. So,
Wow.
that is a lot for a young 1 year in contracting journeyman who, you know what I mean? I was a tech sergeant, yes, but I had only been
Yes.
doing contracting,
Yes.
for a year.
Right.
So, I was like, man, I don't want to mess this up because, the contracting officer that I was, working for, she didn't play.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So, it it also kind of taught me that like I can handle multiple things at one time. I can handle information from different sources at one time and
Yes.
not let these things fail.
Hmm.
They can still be successful, they can still get done, they can still be prosperous, and I can still do more than one thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No. Yeah. No. That I can relate to pretty much everything you just said. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit.
Okay.
So in addition to National Black Business Month that I'm observing via lifewriting.com, I'm also observing National Wellness Month.
Oh yeah.
So I'm actually curious because, again, you got a lot going on, three
Hmm.
different things, different directions. You got, the dependents, mouths to help feed, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you stay sharp? And I was thinking more professionally before, but now that I'm thinking, but the
Hmm.
wellness aspect in my mind, our mental capacity, physical, all of that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
is so important.
yep.
What,
4 dimensions of wellness.
yeah,
That's that government in us.
no, that's it.
Um,
How do you stay
yeah,
sharp?
it's a, oh yeah, and so the lowest common denominator has always been physical, being physically fit. So I go to Soldier Fit, which is kind of like a boot camp ish workout,
Okay,
and I go early in the morning because that's how I'm programmed. So at 5:30 in the morning, most
same here.
weekdays, you will find me in the Soldier Fit gym, 10 minutes from my house, getting my workout on. It's like a circuit based training, and usually there for an hour, and that's kind of become part of my regular routine. And then also, I have, I try to communicate. This has been one of those things that I learned through the pandemic. Focusing on my communication with the people in my life, with my wife, with my children. I'm still working on a lot of that, but also I got a therapist. I have a therapist, more like a friend, but I have a therapist that I see regularly, that kind of helps me, to
Good to hear
gain
you
that
say that.
third party perspective, a person
Yes.
that's not directly in your life, that's not a friend of yours, that's somebody that's on the outside that can give you things and
Hmm.
tools in a way that may outside of your normal chain. And if nobody else will tell anybody this, Black people, it is okay to go to therapy. It is okay to talk to somebody about your crazy ass. It is fine. Like it's
Yes.
okay. It's
Yes.
okay.
It's okay.
It really is. It really is. So the physical and the mental things, those two things really kind of help balance me out.
Yes.
I've always had a strong foundation, from, I grew up in a preacher's kid in a church and all that stuff. So I still always have my spirituality,
Okay.
as a foundation. And then the military and government aspect kind of put that discipline in there, because really, when you're given a mission, so to speak, it may seem small, but if the right leadership will tell you how that small part of the mission that you do fits into the success of that squadron, that wing, that group, that base, that the Air Force. And I've seen it at all different levels, at the wing, the group, working in the Pentagon, how a small job that you do kind of contributes to mission success. So really being able to put things in perspective when it gets crazy, um, is really helps me stay focused as well. Dealing with an unruly customer or somebody that may be dissatisfied with some pricing that I put out on comic books. Taking a second and really, like, okay, I could go ham on this person because they're
Right.
being illogical,
Right.
or I can be as professional as possible because I know that this is the internet and the internet never dies. So if I'm rude or disrespectful to this person, all they got to do is screenshot that and post it and ruin my reputation.
Yep.
So, being able to put things in perspective, is a good sharpening tool as well.
Wow. No, no, I love that breakout. And you kind of went into what I was going to touch on too, as it relates to, just how you come down from your day or what have you. And a lot of what you just shared kind of in essence captured that aspect as well. So this is what I'm curious about now, Brandon. And I'll start to wrap this up with you. And again,
Yeah,
I really appreciate your time. But so so you got all of this stuff going on, the Killer Bee comics, your consulting business, and other things that you're doing on your day to day. Like, so what? Quite frankly, what's next? What's on the horizon?
yeah, I got a couple of things working. I've been building some relationships, with people that have kind of been in my life professionally, kind of since my early days. So on the consulting side, kind of refreshing those relationships with people in the business space, and so that I can be an asset to them in a different way, in this way. So I've been working on that. Been working with a couple of companies that you may be familiar with, kind of building those connections and me doing some work for them, through the consulting. Also on October 2nd, I'm going to be doing a workshop, as a part of an organization called Minwo, where they focus on building Black business ecosystems. So I'll be doing a workshop on kind of getting government contracts. So
Awesome.
that's, again, something I've never done before, but I'm looking forward to doing. And then just with the comic books, I'm moving into more social media with that, with Instagram, and then moving probably on to TikTok with some things, kind of leverage those things differently to drive
Good.
those sales. And, so yeah, I'm really exploring now. I've already launched. Launching was the hardest part. So now that I launched everything, I'm exploring and seeing, what's the best lanes for me to swim in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an awesome way of putting it. Yeah, awesome way of putting it. And I'll just leave that there. So all of this information has been, I'm sitting here listening, very inspiring to me, right? Motivational to me as well. As I hope it is or has been with, folks who are setting aside their time to
I
take a
hope
look at
so.
this.
I hope so.
But specifically, words of wisdom for aspiring or budding entrepreneurs, if you will. What comes to mind? What would you share with someone?
Yeah. You know, if there's something that you are good at, something that you believe that you can do, you don't even have to do it better than anybody else. You have to be able to do something that you enjoy, that you're comfortable with. Go do it. If you make pens or pencils, or if you draw things, or you're an artist, or you speak well, and you can find an opportunity to do that, and somebody will maybe pay you money or time or exposure, do those things. Do the things that you enjoy in a way that, it will drive your success. Don't let anybody say, oh, well, there's so many people out there that are selling clothing, or there's so many people out there that are singers and things like that. There's nothing wrong with being practical about your approach and making sure that you have something to fall back on, or making sure that you have an alternative plan in case it doesn't work out. But take a moment and step out on faith and live your dream. Live the thing that you want to do, what you want to be. You get one go round on this. You get there's a number. There's someone somewhere keeping track of whatever you believe in. There's somebody somewhere keeping track, so your turns around the sun. And one day is gonna be your last one.
Absolutely.
And you don't get any do overs. You don't get there's like, oh man, I wish I would have. No, you just got to do it. And if it fails, it fails. Then it's okay. You can get back up and roll on. But if it
Right.
doesn't, whoa, So take an opportunity. We said it earlier. Bet on yourself. Bet on the skills that you have. Step out on that faith. And take the chance.
Um, there's so many things that you touched on, and there's one in particular that's kind of resonating with me at the moment. And it's when you touched on that health aspect, that mental health aspect, getting help, having that third party approach, someone who doesn't know you, no biases or anything like
Right.
that. They're going to give it to you, down the middle. What do they say? Straight, no chaser kind
Yep.
of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, this helping you to navigate through the throes of life.
Right.
In
And it
respect.
doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be a mentor. It can be, someone whose relationship with
That's right.
you is not based on conditions. Your
Yes.
family is a conditional relationship because y'all share the
Mhm.
same DNA. Your
That's right.
friends, it's conditional because you share the same interests. Let it be someone, that is outside of those chains of interest that can give you a beneficial perspective. That's a key word, a beneficial perspective on the things that you are doing.
Absolutely.
It can be a therapist, it can be a mentor, but you have to, the oldest adage is no man is an island, right? You
Yes.
have to have someone that can help, that you can talk to. I haven't talked to Chris, and I'll put this out here. Chris and I haven't talked in 5, 6 years or whatever,
Okay.
since the last time I saw you at a
Uh-huh.
conference.
Uh-huh.
But you know, we are still friends. We are still have a relationship that is built on respect of observances of ourselves in a professional environment, So I
That's right.
could know that I can come to Chris and ask his perspective on things. You have to have those kind of people in your life that you may not talk to every day, but you can get their perspective and their opinion on things, and you can trust that they're going to give you something beneficial, and something that you will need in that moment. You
Absolutely.
got to have those kind of people in your life.
No, great points, man. That support system, it's whew, boy, that phrase is sometimes is overused, is underused, sometimes is misplaced. But
Right.
having that support system, that cast, that in a time of true need, and it could be
Oh
a
yeah.
need tied to whatever, having those people who you can strategically reach out and touch, pick up the phone, send a
Yep.
text, or whatever the case may be, having those outlets, if you will,
Right.
it's just a world of difference. So, Brandon, look, it goes without saying again. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming on and just
Hey.
sharing, your story, those words of wisdom or what have you. We got to do it again in some capacity.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, oh yeah, and thank
so
you for this. Thank you for this, because
yeah,
this was your dream, having these conversations with folks like us, to talk about the things that we're doing. So I appreciate you for thinking enough of me to ask me to be here to share this with you and with everybody else. So
oh yeah,
I'm appreciative of you, brother. And I don't say that word lightly. Or I don't call anybody a brother and just say that. Like, you are my brother, my
you
friend.
know.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate it. But look, we're gonna talk again like really soon. In the meantime, take care, keep doing what you're doing, be it at Quintessential Consulting or on the Killer Bee comic side. I have a wealth of friends and family who have certain interests in those
Yes,
areas.
sir.
So I'm going to make sure that they have your Instagram information, Facebook, or whatever platform or medium you on to
Oh
make
yeah.
sure we all help to get the word out. Okay.
I absolutely appreciate it. And I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. LinkedIn. Just find me. I'm out there.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, thanks again. I'll be talking to you soon, brother.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
Take care, man. All right, everyone. Again, that was Brandon Ferris, owner of Quintessential Consulting and Killer Bee Comics. Just a lot going on. That brother has a wealth of information, a lot of knowledge, be it from not just professionally, just personal. Just taking care of yourself, kind of that wellness thing that I mentioned as well. So I hope you guys got some helpful nuggets, inspired, and insightful information from that conversation. I really appreciate you guys continuing to support lifewriting.com, where writing speaks.